and welcome to the Meeple Mentor YouTube channel. I'm Jared, and with me is Holly. And today we are taking a look at the third edition of Trekking the National Parks. This is a game by Charlie Bink, and yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, it's a medium weight to gateway game type of complexity. Very large pieces, and the setup takes a little bit because you have to put all these plastic rock color stone pieces, if you will, in a bag, and then draw them out one by one and place them on every location on the map before you start. Other than that you're fine. But it's a very large board, similar to, say, Ticket to Ride. You set up with 3 of 6 like major national park tiles. Those are unique because you can go and visit them and then pay certain cards to place your tent on, and anybody can do that. But then you've got a deck of cards for every park, that's on the board, which I guess is every national park in America, at least the major ones.
I don't know about every.
I don't know, right? It's too soon for me to say every national park, but it's certainly a lot of national parks.
It is a lot.
But they've made routes between all the parks on the board, so you can, move your guy to various routes, and then where you stop, if there's a stone, you take that stone. And end of game, the stones are a point, so just moving around to new places are going to give you points. And then there's also a color-coded, set collection bonus, if you will. So if you have the most of a certain color, you're going to get a lot of points. Now, if you have the most of, like, the yellow, which I think is like the most populous color, that's worth more points than, say, having the most of the blue, which there's only like 4 or 5 tokens in the whole game. So it's like, clearly it's easier to get the majority when there's not that many. But that's one way you can score points. Another is just by visiting those national park locations and then paying the icon or icons required on the card. So that is visiting. When you go there, you can pay cards from your hand that match the icons on the park. Now, you can't just go to any park you want, to pay and visit. You actually are limited to the display of 3 available at any given time. The exception would be the 3 tiles, which I mentioned are like major national parks in which you can place a tent on.
I mean, you can go to them, you just can't like do anything unless the card is out.
Right. So you can't pay to, quote, visit and collect any kind of points from it unless the card is out. And then it becomes a race to whoever can really get there first and have what you need. But one mechanism that is part of the game that helps prevent someone from camping, if you will, on a spot until they get what they need is certainly when you move to a space where another player is occupied, you kick them back to the start player, or to the start space.
Which actually can be handy.
Which is very handy when you see, okay, you've been there a while, looks like you're trying to get that card that everybody sees you're trying to get. So you can get there just to kick them off and maybe buy some time for you to potentially take it yourself. So how do you get those cards and icons? Well, you basically get 2 actions a turn. You can draw cards from the card display of, various icons. There's like 5 different color-coded, things like trees and boots.
Skates and trees, skates. That's all I got for you, man.
I think there's like a backpack in there. But, you draw those.
Campfire. There's a campfire.
The campfire.
Mountains. Oh, and the canoe. There you go. There it is.
But you draw those to your hand, and, once you've gotten what you need, you can turn them in. But the other useful thing the cards are used for is to determine how far you can move. So you can play 1 card or multiple cards and add up the number shown on the card, and that's how many spaces you have to move. There's no move up to in this. It's whatever, cards you drop is the total move you have to go.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, I like that restriction on it so that you can't just sort of, go exactly where you want very easily. So it requires you to sort of strategically plan out which cards you're going to gain from the display.
Because if you use your cards to move, you cannot use them as payment for the parks.
Exactly. So the cards, you're going to be needing a lot of these to succeed in this game. But I guess you could focus on just movement and just grabbing a whole bunch of stones and maybe limit how many parks you do. But then who knows? Someone could take
I
it from
feel
under
like
you.
someone that we played with was taking that strategy. They did pretty well.
Yeah, it's very competitive. I don't know if it's a winning strategy or if it's just one that pulls away from other people's ability to kind of compete on that front. Um, we played it at 2 players and at 3 players several times, and I will say it's not very good as a 2 player game.
I much prefer it at 3 players.
Not very good as a 2 player game, and I think because of the map is so big in 2 players, you really don't need to like cross pie each other enough to want to kick them back or to like, okay, clearly you're on that side of the map, so I'm just going to let you go for there, I'll go for this other area, and you don't really need to interact too much, which was kind of like slow or uninteresting. But once we added just a 3rd player, it became, I think, what the game was meant to be, where you do block paths, you do have to consider how close everybody is to where you're going, because now everything is a lot closer, given that there's another opponent taking up space on the map. So I would say this plays better at 3 and 4 players, not at 2. Which for us is disappointing because we tend to play a lot of games just the 2 of us. And so that means this has to stay on the shelf until game day once we have friends over.
It also seemed like it doubled the time to add a 3rd person.
It's true.
Yeah.
It definitely did not take very long for us to play at 2 players. It was almost so fast when we were playing it, we're going, wow, I mean, there's not much to this.
We definitely decided we wanted to play with a 3rd player before we gave a review or anything.
We have to try this with more players because clearly we weren't interacting on the map enough, and there's a lot that you could do in this that maybe we've missed out, and that is absolutely what happened.
And actually, after we played it at 3 players, I came away with a much different outlook.
Yes. So if we had only played it at 2 players and didn't experience 3 players, our review would be more negative.
Yeah.
For real. But having played it with enough people, I'd say this is a great gateway game. Definitely easy enough to teach and play with kids or with new gamers, and the artwork is beautiful. Like the way that they've got the artwork and images for the parks themselves on the cards is nice. And it can be very educational because the back of every card has a lot of information about the park.
I thought that was neat too.
Yeah. So, some people say, well, I don't want to play an educational game. Well,
why not?
Why not? Like it works as a game on its own, but it also works to educate you a little bit about our national parks in the U.S. And if you don't care about the education part, just stop reading. But that's a general recommendation. If you don't care about learning, then don't read. But this is a great game. I think they really knocked it out of the park, to say the least.
I see what you did there.
So trekking the national parks was a lot of fun given the right player count, and plays as what you would expect in terms of like time commitment for a gateway game.
Yeah.
Like I said, the only time the longest thing was really getting all those stones onto each individual space of the map, but it's not too bad.
I didn't participate in that part, so
yeah. But I really recommend it if you guys like fun kind of easy to learn under an hour games, something to play with nearly anybody, and especially if you like learning about history and national parks. It's great. I mean, it's fun. 3rd edition.
I agree. It's great.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's good. Recommend it.
At 3 players.
At 3 players or 4, not 2. All right. Well, thanks for watching this review. I've been Jared.
I'm Holly.
We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.